So, just by show of hands, Nick and Charlotte, I can still see you. Can you just confirm that you can see the screen presentation? Is everything going well? Good news. Happy days. João Maria Ramos, please turn your video back on. You are one of the stars of the show. He's gone into hiding already. There we go. Were you going to go off and do some work, were you, João Maria? So everyone, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy days to join us here on this Zoom live broadcast. The purpose of today is to introduce some of the core wines in the Portuguese range from Majestic. Many of these have been in your wine list for quite some time. One of them was a recent addition last year, but Christine Barkey, who was the buyer up until a few months ago, who's been replaced by the lovely Jane, she wanted us to demonstrate the gems within the range that made Majestic such a good Portuguese supplier. Now they're all in on the app. Every retailer is getting a wider range of Portugal, but we all know that you did it first and you did it best. So thank you very much for bringing Portuguese wine to the UK consumers. We have a few more people joining us now, but most important people here today, absolutely not me. It's João Maria Ramos from João Portugal Ramos. We have Nuno Canseio de Abreu, our winemaker and chief at Boas Quintas, and Pedro Campos, who we're going to speak to first, who is from Casal de Ventazela. So we have, as Oakley Wine Agencies, we've been working with Majestic now for many years. Nick, I would ask you to hold up your hands, but I'm pretty sure it's more than 10. Yeah, there we go. 12 years we've been working with Majestic. And who are Oakley? Why are we here? We represent 14 wineries across Portugal. Nick started the business about 34 years ago. It started with one van and him driving the wines around the countryside of Suffolk. And he was selling wines to pubs and restaurants and bars. The wines of Tejo, believe it or not, was his first adventure. He met João Maria's dad, João Portugal, who was a consultant winemaker who introduced him to 14 different wineries, and they all became our partner wineries. About that number, maybe 10, maybe 12. I make that up every time. But the most important thing is that those wineries wanted some presence in the UK, and Nick was the person to do it. So he started opening doors. He's been selling to the UK retail scene for over 30 years. First break was in Sainsbury's and in Majestic, as he said, 12 years ago. So the people that we're going to meet today are the winemakers in charge of 6 of the core wines in your range, and those wines are up on your screen right now. We're then going to have a question and answer session. If you do have a question that you feel is relevant to the wines on show or being tasted at the time, we have a system set up so that Charlotte will feed those questions into me, should they be relevant at the time. If then they are still relevant, but they're not as relevant right then, we'll hold them until the end and we'll go through the question and answer session. Please do not unmute yourself for a question, and please do put it into the chat box. And then including in the chat box right at the end, we're going to have a quiz. 6 questions, multiple choice, and the prize is a weekend break for 2 in what they describe as a luxury hotel for 2. Now, luxury obviously has its own perception, but I'm hoping that it will be wonderful and well worth the prize. So please do join in, and we'll see you in the quiz at the end. So we still have a couple of people joining us. There we go. Welcome. I'm going to announce Bath and Beckenham were late to the party, but welcome anyway. Please do join us for this tasting, talking through the wines of Portugal. Now, Portugal, you probably all know more than I do about Portugal. I've been doing this for 2 years, so I'm not going to go into detail. I'm just going to give you some broad outlines. Most striking thing for me about Portugal is when you drive from one side to the other, you can get 8, 9, 10 degrees in variation. The microclimates around the country are astounding. When you're in the beautiful Vina Verde, you drive across to the Douro and all of a sudden you're sweating. It can increase that much. The climate is incredible. The grapes are fantastic. They've got over 250 indigenous varieties, which is second only to France. They are some of the best value for money across Europe. Low carbon footprint because they're just around the corner. Very short boat ride to get to us as well. We also have some really great wines at the top end that are not charging as much as maybe they should be. So there's still some value at the top end as well. And we also have the joy of Porter 6 in our worlds, which has managed to increase the popularity of Portuguese wine around the UK. We have some, to move on to the next slide. There we go. Learn which button to press. The first of the magic regions we're going to talk about is the Vina Verde, which is obviously green wine. And we have two wines here from Casal de Ventazela, which is based in the subregion of Val d'Ave, which is one of the many subregions, the 9 subregions. If you're unaware of it, Montsel Malgasso, sorry to speak ill of Val d'Ave, but Montsel Malgasso is known in Portugal as the absolute pinnacle of white wine production. The Alvarinho grape variety, which is the same as its Spanish neighbours, literally just over the border. And at one point they were the same country, so you could argue that Portugal is the original country for Alvarinho/Albarino. We have granite soils, 9 subzones, and some very, very good wines. The first of which we're going to taste today, please get your glasses at the ready, is the Casal de Ventazela Orinto and the Casal de Ventazela Alvarinho. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the wonderful Pedro Campos. Pedro studied enology at the UTAD in enology, which I have no idea how to pronounce it, so I'm not even going to try. Pedro, I'm going to ask you to unmute. There we go.
Yeah.
Welcome to the call. Please say hello to everybody from the Majestic team in the UK.
Thank you, and hello to everybody.
Now, first things first, how did you get into wine?
Well, my history into wine started many years ago when my family had a small portion of land where we produced wine for our own consumption. So I've been introduced to wine since I remember, let's say 5 years old.
5 years old, wow. Were you drinking it or were you just helping make it?
No, not drinking. I used to taste it, but not drinking. No, sometimes licking my fingers on the wine, but not more than that.
And your family, do they still own the wine estate? Because the thing that strikes me about Vina Verde is that almost everyone there seems to have their own plot of land, almost like Burgundy.
No, it was a small plot, and it was just for us. So as soon as I grew up and the land was divided between the several parts of the family, so no more producing wine. Now I do it professionally, so it's different. And there's not a lot of small producers like in the past. So now things are a little bit more concentrated.
Thank you. Apologies, technical error. I'm only seeing you. Seeing Joel Maria Ramos at the moment. I'm not sure if everyone else is seeing Pedro talk. Just to clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Good. So, your first wine. Would you mind introducing us to Ventazela and how you came to work for Ventazela?
So Ventazela, it's a family estate. It's been doing wine since the mid-80s. It all started with the passion for wine of Mr. Cortinhas. He decided to create this estate. I joined in around 2001 with a senior winemaker, Fernando Moura. So he's been my sensei, let's say, my master, and teaching me a lot about Vinho Verde. So I just finished the university. I came to Casal Ventazela and started learning a lot about Vinho Verde, learning a lot about the grapes. I did also an intern in the Vinho Verde Commission, so to study the white grapes for Vinho Verde. So it all started like that around 2001. Since then, we've been doing and growing together, and it's been a wonderful journey.
So you've had 22 years of promoting premium Vinho Verde throughout Portugal and the world.
Yeah, the promotion started when André joined in outside Portugal, but until then we were more for the local market. Then when André joined the team, we started exporting, and it's been fun, really rewarding.
Rewarding, and he's a lovely person to work with. Don't tell him. But
yeah,
he's just around the corner from me there. The wine. So the first thing that I always get asked about the Orinto is people expect this fizzy, sweet, fresh Vinho Verde. Now this has got the freshness, but it doesn't have those bubbles and the sweetness. Can you explain why that is?
Well, Vinho Verde tradition in the past, my grandfather, when he was producing wine and he bottled the wine will do another fermentation inside the bottle. So some of the CO2 will be trapped and created some bubbles. That tradition, that style of wine endured in the Vinho Verde region and was loved by many of our consumers. So to keep that tradition, now we have some bubbles in the Vinho Verde.
Okay, so there's not, but it's not as much as I'm used to. So every time I try Zella's wines, there was a little bit less.
A wide range of styles, and some with more bubbles, some with none. Nevertheless, from the Vinho Verde region, we feel that it doesn't need to have a lot of bubbles, just a little bit to add to the crispiness, to the traditional style. It's for that. It's a minimum quantity, but add something to the traditional style of wine, to the crispiness, helps to keep the wine in the Vinho Verde style.
Interesting. I apologize. I'm just having a little bit of a technical difficulty on this. I have a problem with my slides. I was just about to bring up the slides on your second wine, and I have not got them. Apologies, everyone, for my Zoom ineptitude. For everyone, just for your knowledge, I am usually a Teams person, and we've only been using Zoom for the last couple of days, so we've been practicing. But there we go. I am sharing a screen, and I'm seeing all of that pictures. You don't want that. Now you see the inner workings and the inner magic of how we do our presentations. So, advertisement for Canva here. Canva's fantastic. And there we go. These are the two wines that we're tasting. We have Orinto on the left, and the second wine we're going to taste is the Albarino. So if you can move on from the Orinto. So Orinto, sorry, I forgot to do the summation on the Orinto. For me, the thing that strikes me when I'm in Portugal is tasting the wine fresh out of tank for the fresh vintage is red apples. Smell Orinto and I get red apples on the nose. And it's the one way that I can recognize the grape variety. There's a few podcasters out there that put Orinto down as the next big thing in Portuguese white wine. And to be honest, it's been on your shelf for 5 years. I think Nick was ahead of the time in terms of spotting those wines. And it's one of the big challenges we always face in Portuguese wine is trying to get people to pronounce it. And Orinto is very, very straightforward. Well, there is one element on your website. It's always been referred to as Vinho Verde Casal de Ventazella, but actually it's a 100% Orinto, and that is its biggest USP. Second biggest USP is it's from a family wine estate, and it is sustainably produced. What do I mean by that? It's IPM, so it's integrated production management. It is a kind of a campaign that's throughout Portugal, but no one really shouts about it. And it effectively means that they can all, whoever subscribes to this campaign can call themselves sustainable, which is good, obviously. But it means that there's healthy soils, it's about the health of the employees, and it's also about the health of the business. But it's a business and biodiversity type of program, but specifically in Portugal. So that is the same, that can also be said for the Albarino. Pedro, please, could you introduce us to your beautiful Albarino?
Well, the Albarino, it's a wine that's produced with for me, one of the best white grape varieties in Portugal, if not the best. We harvest the grapes by hand in small boxes. We do some skin contact before fermentation. We ferment the wine between 16 to 80 degrees to keep some of the flavors in the wine. And 10% of this wine, around 10 to 15% of this wine is from the previous vintage that stays in oak barrels, not new oak, but oak barrels, doing some batonnage for 1 year, and then is added to the blend in the next year. So it adds a little bit more complexity, it adds a little bit more structure, and the wine gets with a slightly different profile, a little bit more mature. This one has no bubbles on it, so it's 100% still. and it's a wine that shows also what the Vinho Verde region can do, even if it's outside Monção and Melgaço. So the Alvarinho grape develops really well in all of our region, in all of our sub-regions, and it's a wonderful wine. It's a lot of complexity, really nice flavors, and it's very versatile in terms of pairing with food. So really wonderful wine.
And which foods would you pair this with?
With food, which foods?
You said it's really wonderful with food, but which foods would you?
Everything that's fish, seafood will be really wonderful. Some Asian foods like some Japanese sushi or sashimi will also be nice. Some light pastas, I like it very much. So yeah, it's very versatile.
Excellent, thank you. And I have a VIP on the call who has asked me a question directly. Jane has asked, what is the best grape if it wasn't Alvarinho? If you were to have one other grape from Portugal, which is your favorite
one? Should I choose another one for my region?
If you weren't allowed Spanish grapes.
No, there's a range of white grape varieties that I like very much. I like Loreto, I like Encruzado, I like very much Arinto, so I like several white grape varieties from Portugal. Some well unknown like Avesso, also very nice. So there's some, but we must have the one that we, as a winemaker and as a consumer, that we love working with, give us a lot allows us to have a lot of ideas how to work with. So Alvarinho is for me one of the best.
Well done.
Thank you. Sorry, Graham, I know you don't want people to unmute themselves, but it wasn't a trick question, Pedro. It was just that I think you said Alvarinho was one of the best white grape varieties, but not necessarily the best one. And I was just intrigued, and I think it's really interesting to hear you talk about these other grape varieties. I actually find this Alvarinho today absolutely superb. I mean, it's got delicious citrus, white fruits, got some weight mid-palate, real depth to it. It's certainly not sort of what you think of old-fashioned Vinho Verde or the region produces, and I think this is absolutely stunning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I appreciate the intervention. And Pedro, thank you very much, because your answer was great. I love the fact you turned it back around to say, actually, yes, Alvarinho is one of the best ones, which is good. I think Avesso, you mentioned, is one of my favorites, and the Arinto as well is probably up in the top 3. But the beautiful thing about Portugal, and Nick tells me all this a lot, is if you compare the white wines now to 5 years ago, they've come on leaps and bounds. Maybe not 5, maybe 10 years ago, but the wines themselves across Portugal are very good quality. João Maria Ramos is doing things like picking before 10 a.m. to make sure that the wines are always fresh and the acidity is there. And it's a big challenge with global warming to make really good white wines in the south, in particular in Portugal, but in the north, this is going to be the place where even riper, greater vintages are coming, and because of global warming. So it's a very exciting time to be a Vinho Verde producer. Thank you very much for your time. I'm going to ask, we do have a couple of questions around the golden color of the Arinto. So just to let you know, yes, this is a 2021. It has got a slight age. It does come out of the tank with a bit of a hue, but if it is properly gold, yellow gold, then you maybe have a strange bottle, but most it is this kind of lemony gold traditionally. So we have 2022 is inbound soon, and 2022 on the Alvarinho is also on the water. So you should receive them very soon. Moving on, I'm going to say thank you, Pedro. If you want to stick around for the questions at the end, please do so. If you need to dash away, you're more than free to do so. I'm going to put the screen back up. And Nuno, would you like to join us on speaking? And Pedro, if you could yourself.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Nuno.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Hello.
So, Nuno is from Boas Quintas, who actually represent two regions within your range. The first one that we're going to taste is the Agenda Down. If you can grab that wine and pour that into your glass, please. The Agenda Manager's Choice Down, which means that it is the best wine from Portugal by far, because you guys chose it. So thank you very much for putting that badge of approval on it. The Dow itself, so almost everyone knows the Douro, and not as many people I find know the Dow when I'm talking to them about Portugal. The Dow for me is the Burgundy of Portugal. It's got this amazing long ripening season, and you can achieve. So my pet hate in Portuguese wine is Touriga Nacional. It's a grape that I just don't get on with, but when you put it in the Dow, this hot day, cool night, long ripening period, you can get a smooth, fresh, attractive grape without those big beefy tannins that put me off the grape in general. And Touriga is one of the key grape varieties in the region, along with Alfrochero, Tintoras, there's Jaén, which is Mencia as well. It really is a wonderful region, and 2 years ago I wouldn't have drunk Dow, to be honest, and Nick introduced me to the region as his favorite region, and I am now sold on it, and it is my TV wine, Agenda Dow, absolutely 100%. So I'll pass over to Nuno now to tell me how he makes such a wonderful wine.
Yes, hello everybody again. This wine has 3 varieties. The Touriga Nacional is the more important. The Touriga gives the deep color and the very floral aroma of violets and some exuberant red fruit, and a very refreshing natural acidity. The Alfrocheiro is more the forest aromas, pine trees and the ripe black fruit. And finally, the Tinta Roriz is more spicy, is more pepper, berries. And I make this wine with some skin contact in cold temperature for 3 days, 4 days, to take more aromas from the skins. And after we ferment it with, at 24, 25 degrees to take all the best from the skins. In down, the seeds are not so ripe. Then in the first day of fermentation, we take out the seeds. They are green. Then the tannins come only from the skins. Then they are very smooth, very round tannins. And this wine is really has a very nice ruby color, forest aromas, ripe and exuberant red fruit. And in the mouth you can feel a slight touch of wood, because it passed 3 months in the barrels, used barrels, and has a very nice and natural acidity, who gives freshness and makes this wine very gastronomic. And I think it's a very good pairing. It makes a good pairing with the grill and cooked meat.
Apologies, I was just emailing back. So green and cooked meat is sustainably produced, something I needed to ask you about on this wine. Can you tell the store managers why you are sustainable as a producer?
We don't use, we use only the products are not very aggressive to the nature. We put a lot of nets to have birds in the vines, and we make the biodiversity. We want to be more and more have biodiversity in our vines, and all of our wines are vegan also. Then we respect the natural grapes and the wine also.
No, it's not just me and Nick who love your wines. We also see gold medals year in, year out from Mondosvini, Concours de Bruxelles seem to absolutely love your wines. I did hear this week or last week that the IWC were going to give you a trophy for your recent gold-winning IWC Agenda DAO. Unfortunately, the 21 is not in stock in Majestic, so it wasn't in that shortlist. But please be aware the 21 is coming soon, and it is fantastic, and it has yet another gold medal, which will be on your shelf alongside the Manager's Choice medal, which was awarded. I'm not sure how many years ago, but it was a few years ago. The Agenda DAO was picked out as the wine of choice of the managers out of a group of DAO wines, I assume.
I think it has this wine is very elegant and very gastronomic one. It's why it's so easy drinking and it's so pleasant. Yeah.
And on the label, there's a picture of a vine, and it goes through its life cycle. For those who don't know, agenda is another word for calendar, and it shows the calendar of the life cycle of the vine on the label. So as you look closely, it goes from budding to flower burst on to to autumn. I don't know what you call it, but pruning, I imagine. So we are going to move on now to your second region. Now, just a little story behind why this is the second region.
Yes.
My understanding of this, please do correct me if I'm wrong, is that you have been making the wines for the family owners of Herdad de Gambia for many years. And up to a point, you were selling more of them out of your Boas Quintus project than they were selling themselves. And they effectively said, we trust you with our name, we trust you with our estate, please take it forwards and we'll grow the grapes. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, that's it. That's it. I like very much this region because the vines are in the near the Sado River. He has a big influence from the ocean, and they are planted in gently slopes with a very good exposition to the sun. The soil are sandy soil, and the climate is moderate, and we have a very nice and slow maturation in the grain, the grapes. Then this Herdad Gambia, red, it's a blend of 3 varieties. Also, we have also the Touriga National, who gives the color, the flower aromas, the fruity, very smooth tannins also. And the second variety, it's Shiraz, who has good conditions to their maturation, and it gives a deep color, very ripe, black fruity in the mouth. And the third variety is Aragonese. Okay, that means it gives the pepper, the spicy to the blend, and in the blend you can feel the aromas of the ripe red and black fruit, the violets from the Touriga. It's very flower and very nice. It has the spicy from the Aragonese, pepper. It has velvety tannins, a touch of fruit from the 3 months aging in barrels, and is very elegant and persistent in the finish. Then it's, I think this wine is a nice wine to pairing with barbecue.
Sorry, to pair with what? Sorry, Nuno, you missed the word there. You said to pair it with what? Sorry, it went a bit funny.
With barbecue.
Ah, with barbecue. Yes, thank you for that hint. So the wines of Setúbal, middle of June, most important thing. Setúbal produces wines that are most close to the New World in style. So you get Shiraz ripens here really, really well, and it's a perfect barbecue wine. Herdad de Gambia. It's vegan, it's sustainable once again, it's perfect with barbecues. It is one of the best-selling reds from Portugal that isn't Porter 6 on your shelves. It is very nice wine, enjoyed by all, and thank you very much for introducing it, Nuno. We are
Cheers.
going to hand over now to João Maria Ramos, who has sent me a message whilst I'm in the middle of this thing, which is to change the presentation because I'm on the wrong one. So I will do that now. And João Maria, would you like to come on and introduce yourself and tell us about João Portugal Ramos while I fix the presentation?
Hi everyone, my name is João Maria. So I work for my family wine company. My father started in '92. Before that, my father was a wine consultant for many wineries, and that's when he met Nick, driving a lot all over Portugal, visiting the wineries where he was making wine. Then my father is from Lisbon. At a certain point, he decided to buy something for him in Alentejo, where we live now, and he bought a plot of land in the '88, where he planted his first vineyards. From there on, we started to make some wines. My father, I was not born, started to make some wines, and in '92 he bottled this first wine at a friend's winery, and in '97 he built his winery. And nowadays we are present in 4 different wine regions all over Portugal. But with Majestic, we work with our Alentejo wines. That's where our heart is and where we live. So Alentejo, as Graham said, it's quite a warm region. It's a continental climate. We have very cold winters and very hot summers. For the last couple of years, we've been facing some difficulties with the water. So we need to be more wise when to irrigate and to try to retain some of the water that we have during the winter, so we can use that water during the summer. The advantage of where we are compared to the other regions of Alentejo, one of the advantages of Estremoz, where we live, is that we are about 400 to 500 meters high. And what happened here is we have very warm days in the summer, and but at night it's cold. So now it's I don't know, it'll be like 15 degrees, or so it cools down a lot with during night. So it's quite nice for the thermal difference. It helps a lot the anthocyans in the reds and the acidity in the white wines. So even though it's a difficult region, I think it's a fantastic region and very consistent. So we are very happy with the result vintage after vintage. We've been changing a bit our viticulture practice. Nowadays, we try as much as possible to avoid the sun on the grapes. So we try to have more shadow instead of the grapes facing the sun. We want the grapes to be protected from the sun. It's a bit the opposite that what we learn when we are young. But we see that, so we have the warm days that the plant can handle it, but the worst nowadays is the sun radiation, the sun light, and that can destroy a bit the skin. So if we have the grapes protected from those sun, we are safe. Another thing about Alentejo that is quite cool, it's the diversity of soils and climates that we have. So Alentejo, it's 1/3 of the total surface in Portugal, of the total area. And we have vineyards in the sea, we have vineyards at 1,000 meters high. So we have lots of different terroirs, and we have lots of different grape varieties that we are able to use as a DOC. So we have, it's quite fun to be a winemaker here, because it's all about blending and finding the right balance between those different terroirs and those different grape varieties. Anything you want to say more, Graham?
I was just going to say, let's pour some wines in the glass. We've got a Ramos Reserva. Hopefully everyone's got that wine lined up. A beautiful black label with its...
So Ramos, it's our family name. It's it's one of our most sold wines, actually. We only do it, we don't... we started this project in 2006, 2007. We just won with the 21 the gold medal in the Brussels World Brussels competitions. It's always very well rated. It's been for the last, we sell it a lot in Sweden, and Sweden works with a monopoly, and it's been like in the last 10 years, I would say it's always in the top 3 wines available at the monopoly for quality for money. So I see here that as 4.2 grams of sugar. I think it's a bit less actually.
Oh,
We try not to
from last year.
we try not to pass a bit before, but another thing, Graham, is sorry, it's added sugar. So basically what we do is we ferment until dryness, and then we add a bit of sugar just to round up a bit the wine, even though it's not our favorite thing to do, but sometimes it's the Portuguese wines, they need a bit of this softness to get more consumer friendly in this kind.
Okay, yeah, no, I understand. We were discussing the benefits of why this wine is slightly different to others on the shelf.
Yeah, it's much less sugar than Porta 6.
Yeah,
much less sugar, and I think it's much a bigger wine, so it's more concentrated. It's not that it's so. I think Porta 6 is a bit too jammy. This one is more fresh.
What makes it a reserva?
So reserva makes the quality and the time that you need to store the wine before going to the market. So basically, it's you need to be approved as a reserva. So you need to have a higher score than a regular wine on the commission. And another thing is you need to keep it inside your winery before bottling at least 1 year. So we say here stainless steel. We do 3 different methods of aging this wine: stainless steel with some oak alternatives, the steves, the big oak steves, and we use some barrels as well. Another thing that we use a lot here in Alentejo for our red wines, I would say Ramos has about 10% of it, not more, but the second 100% is made like that, is we use a lot the lagares. The lagares is the open tank fermenters. So basically it's a swimming pool with grapes, not bad.
This one just down here. So this is
a lagar.
The lucky 6 of the Majestic team last year doing the foot treading. Actually, for the next wine on the list, which is the Marcus de Borba Vinhas Velhas, which means old wines.
So I saw a question: what's the fermentation method? There are 2. Either in the Ramos is mostly on stainless steel with the normal pumping over. We do 2 or 3 devastage at the beginning of the fermentation, and then we do normal pumping over. And when we feel we have enough extraction, because here our red wines are really powerful, so sometimes we need to be a bit careful with not to over extract. When we feel it's enough, we press it. It can be in the end of the fermentation or after the fermentation, it depends. The other thing, the other way of fermenting the wines that we use a lot in our winery, we have 8 lagars. I would say we do not 25 to 30% of the grapes we receive, they go to the lagar. So I try to think a bit of a lagar as when we eat a piece of an apple, for example, with the skin. So basically all the good things, most of the good things from the grapes are in the skins. All the tannins, the anthocyanins, lots of vitamins, lots of precursors of aromas, lots of good things. And what happens when we use the lagar is we have a huge area of contact between the liquid and the skins during fermentation. So the ratio is much bigger. And then the other thing is when we eat the piece of apple at the beginning with the skin, you don't feel the harsh tannins from the skin of the apple. The apple skin also has tannins. But if you chew it for too long, you start to feel the harsh. You start to feel the greenness. And that's a bit what happened in the lagars. I think is we have a huge amount of extraction because of the contact area, but we don't extract the green tannins. So I call it a bit a selective extraction. We extract only the ripe tannins. So the difference is after we finish the fermentation in the lagar, the skins are completely extracted, but they are intact. And when we take the skins from the vat, sometimes they are completely destroyed. So it means that we extract also the bad things from the skins. So the lagars on that helps a lot. So in our winery, and a bit of our profile of wines are big wines, but not aggressive or over extracted wines. We like wines with structure, but we want them to be balanced, and the balance is everything. We need tannins, we need color, we need acidity, and we need a good balance with the alcohol level as well. So that's
got a really nice roasted hazelnut on the palate of that wine. The Vinhas Velhas is a really gorgeous, it's almost like a sweetened toffee nut.
Yes,
it stands out from the other reds on the taste, and you can tell how that's been looked after in the barrels. And sorry to Nuno, they're gorgeous, but this has just got that extra layer of complexity.
So Marquês de Borba is our most important brand, and we were very happy to have with Majestic this wine. It was a good victory for us. And what happens is, so our most famous wine is Marquês de Borba Reserva. It's our top wine. And then our most sold wine is Marquês de Borba Colheita. It's actually one of the top 10 most sold wines of the Alentejo region, and is by far the one with the most expensive price. So we are quite happy. So it's, the consumer relies on the quality. It's relies on the quality of our wine, and it's able to pay more than the other ones. But there was a big gap between the normal Marquês de Borba and the Reserva. And so in 2016, it was almost 25 years that we've been working in Alentejo. We separated some of the older vineyards, planted by us, from some partners or from some farmers that we know for many years. We separated those vineyards and we start to vinify it in the lagars and take it to oak. I saw a question of what is the difference between the Hungarian and French oak. I'm going to be completely honest, is a Hungarian person receives much less than a French person. So they are much more, because the oak is pretty much the same between the French and Hungarian. Of course, American is a huge difference, much more vanilla notes, but we are very happy with the results of the Hungarian oak. And I think that they might be even, I don't know why, I think it respects a bit more the fruit than the French oak. So more and more we are having Hungarian oak. And another thing that we are doing is we are changing everything for it takes time to change. We have almost 600 barrels, but we are starting to change more and more to 500-liter barrels, because we think more and more, I think oak is super important for a top wine, but it has to be balanced and it has to respect the fruit. So bigger barrels, I think it respects more the wine.
Thank you for your time. It was a real pleasure and a privilege to be out there last year, foot treading this exact wine.
Yes.
I say this exact wine because this is the 2020.
And he spoiled the wine, Graham, while we were stepping the grapes to spoil the wines.
Yeah, well, that's my feet for you. They're terrible.
Now, another thing that I want to say, so I saw here that you have about the WASP sustainable production.
Yes, that's on my list to ask you.
Something very nice. To be honest, none of the wines you have now at Majestic are WASP yet, only from 22 on. But it was a sustainable program that the region of Alentejo did, because I think, first of all, most of people, when they are in wine, they are people that like the countryside, and most of us, we study agronomics, so we have a special love for the countryside and for the vineyards and for the environment. So we try as much as possible in our minds to be sustainable. But Alentejo, the region, did something quite cool. They start to measure this, because we all say that we are sustainable, of course, but at a certain point they start to measure it and to see how sustainable we really are. And they did a super tough program to try to certify the producers as sustainable. And we took 1 year between papers and lots of papers, lots of bureaucracy, and finally we have that WASP, the WASP stamp, and it's the only Portuguese stamp of sustainability acknowledged by by two of the toughest markets, that is Canada and Sweden. So it's quite nice. And now, of course, the wines of Portugal, smart, we must do it. We are trying to make it a national thing, and to pass what we learned from the Alentejo to the other regions, and to have this sustainable practice to be measured, and for us to be able to tell the consumer that this is a real thing. We are sustainable, and we like very much our fields and our vineyards.
As do I. Very nice places to be. And the thing that strikes me most about the Alentejo is how incredibly cool and calm it is, and it's not this crazy production area. It's just this beautiful farm in the middle of a desert, almost very arid area. And it's such a great place, but it's struggling with the future. So climate change is going to affect Alentejo before it affects other regions in Portugal. Can you talk us through how you're dealing with that?
I'm a bit more optimistic than most of people on that. I think the world is on cycles. We are passing a tough cycle, but we had many in many years. What I think is changing a lot is so we are harvesting much earlier than we used to, especially on the whites. because I think it's a bit of climate change, of course, but even the consumer is changing to lower alcohol wines and more acidic wines and more fresh wines. So on our white wines, for example, we are by far the first ones to start in the region, because we prefer to have a wine with a very nice natural acidity and with lower alcohol level, more fresh, even though the grapes must be ripe, but we try to avoid heavy and the flat white wine. On the reds, what we do nowadays, so our main difficulty, but it's always been a difficulty in Alentejo, it's the lack of water. So we have lots of water during the winter, not lots, but we have enough water during the winter, and then we have no water during the summer. And what we must do is more and more know how to store the water. So we must do water dams, and that takes a lot of time, because it's environment, it's state, and so on. To give the wines, it takes a lot of time, but we are investing a lot on that. And what I think is most important, and that I think is we feel the most, is the radiation, and people feel it with the amount of growing cancer numbers in the skins that we have in the world. It's completely, the sun is much tougher nowadays, and we cannot allow our grapes to face that sun in the skin of the grapes, because it completely oxidates the phenolic compounds of the skins, and it oxidates the skin. It makes a much worse wine. So our biggest goal nowadays is to able to have enough vigor on the plants to make a shadow to fully protect the grapes from the sun. And we learned that in Australia. They do the sprawl system, and more we are going for a sprawl system to protect the grapes from the sun.
Thank you very much for your input there, João Maria. Really insightful, and appreciate your time tonight, and also to Pedro and to Nuno. We're going to hand over now to the more important people in the room, who are the store managers, for any questions that you may have for our lovely winemakers. So please feel free, if you, I would say unmute at any given time, but if you have a question, please put your name, or is there a way to raise your hand on Zoom? I've seemed to remember someone doing that before, but please do put it in our list, in our chat box. Oh, there's my email inbox. You don't want my email inbox. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Sorry. There we go. Who hasn't put their email inbox up on the Zoom before? So each of the winemakers, yes, I can, Jane. That's absolutely fine. So anyone got any questions that they want to put forward, either in the chat box now, or they want to ask a question unmuted? Guessing it's a no.
Well, I think because everyone's silent, I might try and ask a
Thank you,
question
Jane.
actually. So first of all, I would say the wines all show just the breadth and quality of wines coming out of Portugal. And I agree with Nuno about just the elegance of some of the wines too. They've got delicious sort of floral, red fruit flavors that just continue on the palate, and then we've got some more robust reds that are, you know, the last one we've just tasted with that oak on there, really lots of power and weight. Absolutely stunning. Thank you. A couple of observations really, and then a question. Sorry, I always talk too much. My observations, I think Portugal has just got such a diverse range of grape varieties and opportunities going forward. And I think that maybe not only is it great for Portugal, but possibly some of those grape varieties are going to help other regions in other countries as they face warmer conditions and warmer and drought conditions, which is great, as long as you're happy to share them, your learnings. But I guess my question is about, you've talked a lot about sustainability. I'm intrigued by water, rainfall, irrigation. Are people irrigating now in Portugal? Is there an infrastructure to do that? Are people trying to put things in place? And actually, is there the ability to irrigate even if you want to, if the vines need it? Do we have enough, you know, ability to do that? Or are there just things that you can do in the vineyard to make sure that the vines really are resilient, not just biodiversity as a whole, but for the vineyards themselves?
Should I answer that?
I'm thinking that's very much for you. Vinha Verde doesn't seem to need any more water, and I think Dow Valley's probably got enough for the moment. So I think that's for you.
Yes, it's for us it's super important to irrigate. We have also vineyards without irrigation, but it's not common to plant a new vineyard without irrigation. So our irrigation is not the goal is not to increase the yield, because the grape is a very funny fruit. If you have a very high yield, the quality, especially on the reds, it decreases. So you need to have a balanced yield. So why we use the irrigate is completely to be able to maintain the plant in a nice health stage. So they say, it's very good that the plant suffers very much. So plants that suffer, they have better grapes. It's true, but it's not so clear, you know. Because when the plant suffers too much, they stop the work and the maturation stops. So we want the plant to be maturating the grape all summer long. So, and for that, the plant needs to have the leaves green and so on. So it's super important to irrigate in Alentejo. We have the infrastructure to irrigate, but we don't have enough water to irrigate a lot. So it helps a lot, this water, to maintain the plant green and so on and safe, but not to increase the quantities that much. They maintain a healthy plant, I think.
Thank you for that. I have a question for you from Chichester. I did have one question about the Lagars, but I've answered that one. The other one is, this is all three winemakers, but João Maria, if you start first. Are most of the winemakers going over to non-tilling methods to help with environmental issues and help with biodiversity?
What is non-tilling? Sorry.
So I believe it's where you drag something over the soils, which brings up the soils.
Yes, non-plugging. We do 50% of the area we till every year, because so it's another methodology to save water. What I think is, in certain, depending on the vineyard, there are different vineyards. Some vineyards you can avoid the tilling, of course, for some years. So we try not to till during the nesting season of most of the birds, like the partridge and so on, because we don't want to destroy the nests. But now imagine after July or something, we are able to till, or to till it quite early. Not non-tilling to leave carbon in the soil. Yes, it fixates a lot of carbon, the non-tilling, of course, because we have more. You have more green to fixate the carbon, but it also consumes more water. So you have to. It's the same thing. You always need a balance. So what we do here, I don't know if it's the right balance or no. It's we till one row, we don't till the other. We till one row, we don't till the other. That's what we do most of the times. Some vineyards where I really suffer with water, I need to till everything, but it's not very common. And some vineyards that I feel the soil, it's like on a area that is on a valley or something, and you have more water. You don't till at all, because you need the grass to move the machines, the tractors and so on.
Can I pass over to Nuno, if Nuno's still on the line, for the same question, please?
In our case, we have the soil is very compact, and we must tilling the soil a little bit. But in terms of water, we are reducing the irrigation, and we are putting a lot of organic material who takes the water and makes a reserve of the water to the summertime. Then we put more and more organic materials to have really water in summertime, in the maturation period. And we are irrigating very few quantities only because we must have very big stress in the end of the cycle. Then we irrigate a little bit only to maintain the balance of the leaves and the vineyards in the last part of maturation. Yeah.
And what is the process? Do you have to ask for permission to irrigate, or can you just irrigate?
We must ask permission to, but
it's only when it's
allowed.
hot. Only if it's too hot and the season is requires it?
Yeah, we have a limits now for irrigation, for the total volume of irrigation, because it was too much in the years ago. Yeah.
Okay. And Pedro, I assume the irrigation is not a problem for you. Do you have your vineyards? I've seen the ones out front of Ventazella, I've seen are tilled, but that's for replanting. The actual vineyards themselves, they've got entirely cover crop, do they not, on your estate production?
Yes, irrigation for us, it's most of the time we don't need it. We are seeing in the past years, in the late August, beginning of September, some periods of too much heat, and probably in the new vineyards we will have the irrigation system on standby if needed. About the cover, most of the times it's fully covered. Sometimes we do some seeding of some plants that keep some nitrogens to the soil, and if needed, we integrate those plants in the soil. But most of the time, it's fully covered.
And I'm having a question here about fine wines and opportunities for the UK. Now, Vina Verde, you produce something called Prime Selection, don't you? Which is your high-end Vina Verde aged in oak. It's a blend of 3 different vintages, and it is a premium product. You charge, how much do you charge for that in retail in Portugal?
So
Prime Selection.
in Portugal, it's around 80-90 euros.
80-90. So in answer to the question, yes, absolutely, the fine wines are there to be had. It's just about finding the market for them in the UK. I'm just about to put an answer in about Barca Velia and the Douro wines, because in your shelves at the moment, you have S&R Douro and you have Douro Eagle. They are neighbour vineyards, literally stone's throw from Barca Velia. Barca Velia is one of the most prestigious wines in the whole of Portugal, sells for 400 euros retail. And next door, you've got the Douro Eagle, which is 15.99 retail. So it's you know, the definition of fine wine is purely in price. So for me, they are all fine wines because they're produced to a high end and done well. But the market is surely there for the future. So I'm going to hand thank you, by the way, for giving up your time. If anyone did miss that at the beginning, really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy days. Especially, I see a lot of you are actually at home and not in the store as we were expecting, which is really appreciated. So thank you to all of you who chose to do that and to join us either at store or at home and in your garden, Jane, which looks lovely and sunny and gorgeous. I've got grey skies and misery in Milton Keynes, which is a perma state, to be honest. I haven't had a phone call yet. Oh, there we go. It's been like being on the X Factor. Oh no, it's not. Deal or no deal. Oh, we have a winner, but we don't know which store. Does anyone know where Rick Brooks works? Rich or Rick? Rick Brooks got all 6 correct, and he
it says Leeds on
Leeds,
the chat.
there we go. Thank you, Jane. Leeds, how weird. I could have given you the prize today. I was up that way today. If only we knew. Thank you. Bye. So Leeds, Rick, please can you send us your email in the chat, and Charlotte will share the email link. You have won a hotel stay for 2 somewhere in Europe of your choosing. It's a voucher that lots of different hotels have signed up for, so you'll be able to access that. Thank you all for your time and for your patience with my awful Zoom skills. So, bid you all good night, and hopefully see you very soon.
I'd just like to say thank you to you, Graham, and Nick, and all of the winemakers. It's been a brilliant session. I've really enjoyed it. I hope all the stores have too. I'm sure that we've all learned something. We've tasted some great wines. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you to you, Jane. And I'm going to send the deck out now on an email so everyone's got that. The correct deck, not the original one that I sent out. And I'll remove the added sugar part because I got that bit incorrect. So I will. I'll get that fixed and get that sent out tonight for everyone. And this will be recorded should anyone have missed it and they want to watch it back, or I can watch it back and cringe for those moments. Thank you all so much. Have a lovely night time, and hopefully see you in a store very soon.